Welcome to Workforce Wednesdays. Today's topic is Future Emerging and Evolving Jobs. Our presenter today is Christina Mason. She's the AEL Career Pathways Coordinator with Workforce Solutions Tarrant County Workforce Development Board. My name is Olga Escamilla, and I'm your host and moderator. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We want to welcome our presenter. Our presenter today is, again, Christina Mason. And Christina is from Tarrant County Adult Education and Literacy, and she's been with them since 2016 in Career Pathways. She's been working with Workforce Solutions since 2006 in delivering service to job seekers and employers, case management. She's worked as employment services and business services. She's also had special workforce development grant-funded programs, reentry, and industry-recognized credentials. And prior to 2006, she was an eligibility specialist 3 with the Texas Health and Human Service Commission for SNAP, Medicaid, and TANF programs. So Christina comes to us with an abundance of information to share, and we are so glad that she is willing to do so. Again, if you have any questions, please type them in the chat pod, and I'm going to go ahead and change over to Christina's presentation and give Christina presenter rights, and we will have Christina. Welcome, Christina. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Olga, and thank you, everyone, for coming here today. Can everyone hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. Thank you. We do have a lot of information that we'll be covering today. I've also have provided the links to a lot of the resources in the chat pod, so you'll be able to click on those and take a look at the documents. And so when we're talking about emerging and evolving jobs, I need to give you this disclaimer really quickly. This presentation is to raise awareness of certain new and emerging occupations at the national level. However, there currently are no data available to determine if there are significant job openings in Texas. And what that means, in a nutshell, is that even though an occupation is showing that it's increasing in demand as well as emerging or evolving, it doesn't mean that there are significant job openings in our area. Industries see the changes impacting their jobs, such as technology, but this information takes time for the federal government to collect and distribute nationwide to workforce development, educators, and community organizations to use. So that's the reason why you see that lag of time between the number of job openings to the actual increase in demand. And so for us, for a question for everyone, who's here and what's your role? And what does emerging and evolving jobs mean to you? If you can please put your answers in the chat pod, that'd be great.
Christina, did you want me to read them? Or, oh, this one came in privately. So Velta, don't forget to change to everyone, says that new jobs are being created and some jobs are either changing or being eliminated.
Very nice.
And then we have Daisy, and Daisy says jobs that create new opportunities within them.
Very good.
And Christopher says career pathway navigators with, okay, Christopher, you're going to have to help me with this, emerging and evolving, the TCAELC. Oh, Tarrant County. Okay, very good. Tarrant County Adult Education and Literacy Consortium. Emerging and evolving jobs are those which we may be to train our population to enter and improve skills for. Exactly. Because how can we teach our students to be prepared for these emerging and evolving jobs?
These are all great examples. I mean, these are all fantastic. And also when we're talking about, like what Ms. Kelly Carnline has said, it means developing careers based on needs within an industry. That is very straight to the point. And so here we go with a definition. In labor market information, there are several factors to consider when an occupation has been categorized as emerging or evolving. These factors are all linked to SOC codes. Now, what SOC codes mean is Standard Occupational Classification. Now, these codes were updated back in 2010, and currently the U.S. Department of Labor's Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS, just released the new 2018 stock codes. Those 2018 stock codes are not yet uploaded onto ONET, but these occupations that have significant revisions and additions are from information technology and healthcare. No surprise there. But here we have the definition of what we mean by emerging jobs. And this comes from TWC LMCI. There's the link. I've also embedded the same link into the chat pod, so you'll be able to click on it. So this is a boil it all down, emerging occupations mean new titles with new skills. So this is a good way of looking at how these new occupations are impacting into our workforce, into our schools and education systems all across, and how industries are reacting and planning for them. And then evolving occupations, old titles with new skills. So going back to what everyone has said in the chat pod, you were right on target with both of these definitions for evolving and emerging. So think about the types of jobs that would fall into an old job title or same job title. All of a sudden it has more skills attached or new skills attached. So that's where evolving comes from. Now here's a question for you guys. Can you name a job that didn't exist 10 years ago? You can please put your answers into the chat pod. And then also, are you familiar with ONET? And are you familiar with the U.S. Department of Labor's Bureau of Labor Statistics? Apple Customer Service Work at Home Consultant. Thank you, Daisy. Terrific, Sharon. Thank you. She says, social media content specialist. Right on. That's a right on target. All right, Daisy. The ONET website is a great source of information about occupations, about their skills, knowledge, and also abilities. It also gives you information about credentialing, types of education requirements. It's a plethora of information that you can go through. It's all sponsored by the Department of Labor. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Dr. Olga. Dr. Olga has put in the chat pod onetonline.org, the website. If you're not familiar with this website, it's a great resource. It gives you a lot of information about occupations, career clusters, also career assessments that are free for our students to be able to use and explore. There's also that same career assessment is available in Spanish. So going back to name a job that didn't exist 10 years ago. Now, Daisy's response, as well as Ms. Sharon, social media content specialist, that's a really good one because of how social media has impacted our economy and also our culture in these last 10 years, have created new jobs. And that's one of those jobs that didn't exist 10 years ago. So did social media manager. There's also digital marketing specialist and blogger. And there's also cloud services specialist. How about big data analyst? These jobs did not exist 10 years ago. And they're all related to technology and how it's integrated in our culture and society. And so this is, and 10 years ago may sound like it was a long time ago, but when we think about how much content has been created and placed onto the internet, then this makes sense why the jobs follow.
Christina, Christopher mentioned commercial drone operator.
Ooh, nice. Yes, that's another good one because drone technology hasn't been around for very long on the civilian side. It's always been military. And so that's a great example. Thank you, Christopher. Now we're going to go into this one right here from 2018 stock codes from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Now this list, even though majority of your occupations haven't had that much of a significant revisions, these are specific ones. information technology, and healthcare. And this same report has been uploaded. The link has been uploaded onto the chat pod, and it's also available in the presentation. And this also causes us to think about how we see these two industries, information technology and healthcare, how they've integrated in a lot of different ways. They're becoming more and more integrated in their operations and their specialties. So it doesn't surprise us why these specific industries have seen these new occupations growing and becoming more specialized and complex. Texas targeted industry clusters. We saw a little bit of this if you had attended the AEL Summer Institute. This was covered in it was in one of the sessions, and it gave some information about it. I wanted to give you the link to it as well. So you see here in the chat pod, thank you, Dr. Olga, for you to be able to take a look at what these industry clusters are. And this is for our entire state. So we have advanced technologies and manufacturing, aerospace and defense, biotechnology and life sciences, information and computer technology, petroleum, refining and chemical products, and finally, energy. And so you see how this is, we have a variety of targeted industries. And when I see biotechnology and life sciences, I get a little nervous. But biotechnology, when you think about pharmaceutical companies, research and development, nanotechnology, things like that, that all falls in the realm of biotechnology, and also cloning. Then life sciences, think of that as being the scientist who uses the products and services that biotechnology gives to them. So the tools that they need, scientists will need in order to find vaccines and medicines to treat. Now, this is where we're going to go in a little bit deeper. TWC has a report on growth occupations 2017, and I'm going to be covering key findings from this report. This is an annual report that's released by TWC, and I'm going to show you where it's located at. As you can see, I was looking at several different things. There we go. This is from TWC's report, so it also has the link is embedded in the chat pod, so you'll be able to click on it, the PDF. And it goes in a little bit more detail as into which occupations that you can see here on the chart, the long term, with the percentage growth is, the annual wage, and the types of occupations listed. So I covered this information here briefly in the presentation, but the PDF goes a little bit more in depth with the occupation titles, more of them. So going over into this report, just to let you guys know, TWC uses wage data, wage data that's been 2 years because the data needs to mature. And that means that this information is verified through multiple ways. Through wages that's been reported to the federal government, and so that's why it takes a little bit of time. But that's the reason why you see a 2014 to 2024. They'll be releasing again soon the 2016 to 2026. So starting off with construction industry, you're looking at the highest demand will be for supervisors and specialty trade workers such as electricians, plumbers, and carpenters. Construction jobs are projected to add the most jobs, and pay is above the Texas median of $35,000. Now, there's strong demand that continues for residential, commercial, and industrial building projects in Texas. Think about our infrastructure areas that we see. I see it all the time. Road construction in my neighborhood. It's constantly changing and in multiple places. And when I drive down to Austin, for example, I go through road construction there. So construction on a commercial level is still growing and still consistent. But think about where it says the highest demand is for supervisors and specialty trade workers. So those are skilled positions. Now, manufacturing. Manufacturing industry is projected to grow by 7%. Now, this is for a broad skill set range. But these are specific occupations when you think closely. Industrial machinery mechanics. These are the people who fix the machines that breaks down. So in any type of manufacturing, advanced manufacturing companies, they need someone to be able to go in and fix those machines. computer-controlled machine tool operators. That's the long way of saying a CNC machine operator. And we've seen those, especially those training programs across the state. Automation is becoming more and more dominant in our manufacturing industry, and it's also dominant in our other industries as well. So CNC machine operators are part of that automation. They're part of the making sure that they are creating the tools, the parts that are needed to make other machines. Welders, cutters, solderers, and brazers, it goes in hand with these top three. Now, again, automation. It's driven wages and demand for higher skilled employees. That's what an industrial machinery mechanic is. They're a higher skilled employee. So are CNC machine operators and machinists. Agriculture and forestry industry. Now, even though agriculture and forestry is the smallest in terms of employment for Texas, it is still the leader in the nation. Texas produces the most cattle, cotton, hay, sheep, goats, and mohair than any other state. And due to having, for us to have over 130 million acres, this is the reason why we're the leader. And the challenges to this industry is that we're using fewer workers due to more efficient farming methods, dwindling number of farms, and more expensive to operate. So when we're thinking about agriculture, especially in our rural areas in Texas, agriculture is its primary industries. And so when we're looking at the number of workers that are on these ranches and farms, they're becoming smaller and smaller. This is our biggest one, healthcare and social assistance industry. This is the strongest industry in Texas in terms of employment, and is due primarily to population growth and baby boomers retiring. Jobs are expected to grow over 1.8 million by the year 2024. Places where 47% of these jobs are going to be ambulatory healthcare services, which are doctors and dentist offices, outpatient care centers, and medical and diagnostics laboratories. The top positions are registered nurses, LVNs, nursing assistants, and medical assistants. This all comes in line with what we see in our targeted occupations list for each of our board areas. So these occupations are very popular across the state, and it will continue to rise. Educational services. Now with education, educational services is also tied to the population growth, and so that's the reason why you see this high growth of 1.2 million jobs that have been added. It's projected to grow 21.7% to the year 2024. These are the most jobs. The positions that are mostly being added are elementary, secondary, and middle school teachers and educational administrators. Again, it's tied to the population growth, and that's why these specific ones are needed. Transportation and warehousing industry. Here in Tarrant County, transportation and warehousing is very large. And so it's going to continue to grow. And so for areas that have like Dallas County and Tarrant County, we have a large transportation and warehousing sectors across our county, but some of them are concentrated in specific areas in our county. Transportation and warehousing for the state is expected to grow by over 500,000 jobs by year 2024. And trucking itself makes up the largest of the job growth. Now, when we're thinking about truck driving, local general freight trucking is down, but long-distance freight trucking and specialized freight and general warehouse and storage positions are still needed. So basically what that's meaning is that the local drivers that you see in your town, in your county, their demand is low, whereas overhaul for long-distance drivers are going across state lines and also going into Canada and Mexico. They are the ones that are in most need. And this is very big. This happened for us, and especially in our county. Amazon and other online retailers, when they came and moved into our county, these distribution centers had increased the number of jobs that were available in our area. And this is continuing, it's expected to continue as more of these large distribution centers move into your area. That's the reason why there's so much competition for cities to get these businesses to come to their area, because they bring hundreds and hundreds of jobs with them. Mining. This is also tied with oil and gas. Now, even though we go up and down, oil and gas is always up and down. The main thing to think about oil and gas is automation. It, too, has impacted this industry. So thinking about the number of workers needed on oil rigs, jobs are completely dependent on oil prices. And so when we're thinking about the number of workers and then the demand for the actual product, always going up and down. So the positions that are rising are those that are in support and headquarter personnel. Like in headquarter personnel is going to be your sales, your HR, your CEOs, things like that. And then utilities. This is tied directly to our infrastructure to meet the needs of our population growth. And these are the very specific skill positions: electric power line installers and repairers, industrial machinery mechanics. We saw this same position in manufacturing: power plant operators, customer service representatives, and wind turbine service technicians. I believe out in the West and also in the Panhandle, you have a lot of wind turbines there for energy. So it makes sense why we need more service technicians. And this one, the wholesale trade, this is going to continue to add, and you can see quite a bit, over 118,000 jobs and by the year 2024. And these positions are pretty lengthy. So you've got sales representatives, heavy and tractor trailer. Those are your long distance truck drivers. Office clerks, drivers, sales workers, sales representatives again. And then you have here about the wholesale and sales representatives for wholesale and manufacturing products. Retail. Here in Tarrant County, we've got a very large retail trade industry here, especially in Arlington, as we continue to expand and grow more in that area, in that part of town. So retail for us is very huge. This is quite interesting to know about Texas. 8 of the top 100 U.S. retail companies are headquartered here in Texas. I had no idea. I had no idea that retail was that big for Texas as a whole. But the main thing is for us to think about is technology integration and full immersion into analytics on customers and inventory and conversions. What that means is every time when we purchase an item, or every time when we provide a survey on our satisfaction on a product or service that we received at one of these retailers, this information is being collected, and it's being sorted, and it's also being reported back to see what our trends are in our interests and also in our value of their service. So this is why technology is very important, and how it's impacted what types of positions that are most in demand. Now, the jobs that have the highest growth are still the lower paying ones: the cashiers, the retail sales, and your stock clerks and your order fillers. And so what that means is that these lower paying positions are needed to and upgrade their skills, so they'll one day be able to do more in a higher level capacity, such as supervisory or doing analytics or doing something like that, or customer service. And then finance. A lot of large firms are headquartered in cities such as Dallas, and they're also headquartered here in Tarrant, but mainly in Dallas. And so you have a specific rise for insurance policies and loans. And again, this is tied back to our high population growth. So the positions that are needed are insurance claims and policy clerks, customer service representatives, and financial service sales agents. We've seen customer service representatives mentioned before in other industries, so that's still an in-demand occupation across multiple industries. Professional, scientific, and technical services. These are highly skilled positions. This is all due to Silicon Valley tech companies moving into Texas areas such as Austin and Dallas. So positions that are needed: software developers, accountants, lawyers, computer systems analysts, computer user support specialists. And this is all tied to our specific needs and technology growth. And then here we have accommodation and food service industry. Now the challenges for this particular industry is going back to pay and the different range in skills and education. And the positions that are needed are largely located with restaurants, so supervisors, food service managers, chefs, and head cooks, and general and operations managers. Now, I've covered quite a bit over these last 11 industries, but just think back, of all these industries, what stands out to you the most? If you can please put your answer in the chat pod, that would be great. Yes, order pullers, yes, it is a growth with Amazon, and then also with other large distribution centers, especially like your grocery and retail, other retailers, and that they're limited in their skill set. So the next position after an order puller would be a forklift operator.
There's a response here from Liz Elizondo.
Yes.
She says construction. Yes. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you, Liz. Yes, construction is very much in demand, and work safety is always needed because they're constantly having to make sure that their workers are safe. I'm not familiar with that, what you were stating earlier about the affiliation, but we can definitely look into that. Thank you, Liz. Yes, healthcare is definitely one thing that is listed, and occupational and physical therapy positions. Yes, you do see that those kinds of positions needed because going back again, the population, the aging population, and then also you're looking at those positions becoming more, asking for more education, more credentialing. Thank you, Christopher. Healthcare and retail look promising. Specialized roles in construction seem interesting. Construction is one of my personal favorite industries because I believe that in order for us to continue to move around our infrastructure and also to have buildings, we need construction and we need these skilled positions, and they pay well. Now, a few more questions. How prepared do you feel about your program's ability in preparing students for the modern workplace? And what are some challenges that adult education is faced with in implementation? What are your thoughts? Kelly, thank you. Implementation challenges may be based on small student population and availabilities within the surrounding areas, for example, more rural adult ed areas. Those are some very unique challenges, but yes, I agree. Thank you, Daisy. All of them. Our program is slowly incorporating technical careers, and I hope eventually move on to more options. I think the adult education, I think the adult education is faced with issues when the students don't show up to class due to situational factors. Other students will start the program but not finish. I think we need a way to motivate them and perhaps provide a distance learning option for those with legitimate excuses. Very good. Thank you. Yes, Dr. Ogle, do we have the teachers that are ready to teach for jobs of the future? That is a very important question to ask ourselves as AEL providers. Do we have the staff? Do we have the talent to be able to train and instruct our students, to lead them towards the future, to get them prepared? And if we're not prepared, what is it going to take? And thank you, Sharon. Student motivation is always a challenge, and especially with technical training, it's a challenge for everyone, for all different WIOA programs and populations everywhere. All right, that was some great feedback. Thank you. Now, we're going to go into these challenges, and I'm hoping that I'll have enough time because I covered quite a bit, and I do apologize. Here are the challenges. We're going to start talking about what's happening in our 21st century classrooms. Though we don't know what the future holds, such as what jobs will still be in existence, education can prepare students with transferable skills, so they can better respond and adapt to the ever-changing workplace needs. This is what we need our students to be prepared with. Now, here are some listings of challenges. This comes from the Economist Intelligence Report called Driving the Skills Agenda, Preparing Students for the Future. This is a research report that was conducted and supported by, it was conducted by the Economist Intelligence, and that it was supported by Google. And this is from 2018. So these were the specific challenges that they listed as a nation: teaching strategies, technology, teacher quality, budget limitations, and educators being very cautious to implementing new teaching strategies and technology. So now we're going to go in deeper. How do we prepare students for future jobs? And going back to this list, starting off with teaching strategies. Here is a list of different teaching strategies. Some of these things we've been using in our classrooms. But now that we know what these jobs are, the ones that are in demand and projected to grow through 2024, and some of their unique challenges, this is what we have to do, starting with teaching strategies. And here's a list of examples and some information describing each one, such as active learning, project-based learning, cognitive activation, and personalized learning. Now, going into technology, digital literacy is very important for all of our students to have. But we are also not just focused on digital literacy, but we're also needing to use digital integration, technology integration in our classroom, So this is where we are using multimedia, social media, podcasts and videos in our classrooms, educational games, creating art, resume writing, career exploration of websites. All of these things are needed to be integrated and used in our classrooms. But we also understand that not every classroom has Wi-Fi, or not every classroom has the technology abilities that we need for our students to succeed. Teacher quality. This is what this report was saying. We need to provide training to teachers on technology integration in classroom instruction, new teaching strategies that are non-formal, such as communication, critical thinking, workforce preparation activities, and distance learning curriculum. So we need to provide our teachers training. We also need to provide our teachers a framework of support, give them adequate resources and time to write quality lesson plans, and the ability to incorporate new teaching strategies and adopt new initiatives. Again, this is a nationwide study that all educators were saying. Budget limitations. We know that this is always a problem for us. So in order to combat this, use free online resources, public libraries, partner with other agencies that can provide these resources, and continue to advocate to increase the access of technology and integration into student learning. Now, going back here, again, this is the final one, educators being more cautious to implementing new teaching strategies and technologies. This is really important because I think this is our main problems in a lot of areas, is that systematic changes are challenged because they're so large. Our school districts are very large. Our community colleges are very large. Some of our community-based organizations are also very large. So when we're trying to make these changes, you have to change the entire system, not just one part. And so this is the challenging part to it, to being able to adapt these new teaching strategies. And then technology tools as well. This is very important because I've seen this happen before, where the technology that was purchased, the iPads that were purchased 5 or 6 years ago, are now outdated. So trying to make sure that you're keeping up with your technology tools is one job, but another job is making sure that it's being used by the students and by staff. When they're not being used, it's waste. Now, here are some questions for you. Oh, and going back to the chat pod. Thank you, Daisy. She says, oh, yes, I can schedule a trip to the library. Yesterday, I introduced calculators, and even those have changed, so students appreciated the time I took to explain. Yes, calculators have definitely have changed. I forgot how to use the new ones. But going back to the questions for the chat pod, what are some other challenges that you experience? And what are some new teaching strategies that you've used? And finally, how has technology impacted your students and teachers? Have we covered all the challenges, you think? Or there's more out there? Thank you, Liz. She's a career navigator for the AEL in a large school district, and it's hard to fit all of the relevant information your presentation indicates, yes. And it is hard when you're thinking about all the teaching strategies, the different ways of trying to integrate into our classrooms to keep students engaged and motivated. Also, when we're thinking about the different significant challenges that we see in our school districts and community colleges and community-based organizations when we're looking at technology tools, also giving time to staff to develop their lesson plans and curriculum. And so there's a lot of challenges, and I appreciate that. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Christopher. Yes. He says, students in our training programs have used technology like apps to help reinforce the skills they need in class. That's a great way of using technology. Thank you. Yes, and again, he says, for some of our intensive courses, we've used project-based learning so that students have resources to use when they leave the course. Very helpful. Thank you, Sharon. Sharon states, teachers are embracing and utilizing more technological platforms than ever before. We're sharing examples across our consortium with all of our teaching staff. The students love it and more engaged. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Olga. Project-based learning is an excellent way to address workplace skills, too. Daisy. She uses Padlet.com to help students study, navigate, and play games at home with all subjects. It helps a lot. Thank you, Daisy, for that information. We're going to use that as a resource, definitely. And Liz also has here, we start the semester with Google Sites to create a new student portfolio to store their work so they can see a result in the end. Thank you, Liz. Now, these challenges that we've already seen, this is what from the business side of industry that we see. And this comes from the Economist Intelligence Report, Driving the Skills Agenda, Preparing Students for the Future. This is from 2015. And again, this was sponsored by Google. And this is the problems that they had seen, the challenges that they see. Problem solving, teamworking, and communication skills lacking. Education systems are not providing enough of these skills that students and the workplace need. Students are taking it into their own hands when education systems are deficient in preparing with the skills they need. What that means is that students are taking additional classes, they're doing it all on their own because the school that they are attending is not equipping them with the proper skills that they need for the workplace or even for college. Education systems and educators are not applying enough technology in innovative ways in the classroom. There is a digital literacy gap with teachers. Now, because of those listed items that businesses have identified as being lacking in our education systems, as well as the challenges that students are faced with, here are some strategies to connect with businesses. Be involved with your workforce development board to gain access to employers, industry leaders, and labor market information on emerging and evolving occupations. I work for our board here in Tarrant County, and because of the access that we have, our adult education has with our board, we have access to employers. We have access to LMI information, which is really helpful. And so this has been a very tremendous gift to be able to have this kind of collaboration and ease of workflow between us. Partner with local chambers of commerce. Get to know your chambers. Get to know how many of them there are. When do they have their meetings? What types of events do they sponsor? Try to be more involved in listening to what their needs are from the business community. Another one is attend Society of Human Resource Management local chapter meetings. This is where your HR managers are. They also have regional conferences that you could attend and talk to them. This could be a great way of recruiting for workplace literacy sites and also understanding the HR needs. What is it that HR managers are looking for for the type of employee. What are some changes that they see happening in their industry in terms of skills and abilities of the new worker? Attend a focus group meeting. Be part of that discussion with industry leaders and other stakeholders such as your community college. That's very important. Being part of a focus group meeting, you get to listen from different perspectives and experiences, and at the same time be able to provide feedback on your own experience from adult education. We are stakeholders. And then I didn't include this, but another way of understanding what industries are doing, the trends, you can sign up for their newsletters on their website. Subscribe to them so you can get updated information about reports, white papers, things like that, and then any information about new changes, new technologies that's disrupting their business. What are some solutions? What are some things that they're thinking of and planning for? Those are great ways of knowing everything that those associations have, professional and industry associations. I'm not sure if I will have enough time, but I wanted to show you this really quick. It's EMSI. And EMSI, the link is also embedded in the chat pod. I use this information, this resource. Our board subscribed to it several years ago, back in 2012. I'm not sponsoring or promoting or selling EMSI products and services. This is just a demonstration of how we're using this labor market analytical tool and how it assists us in learning about employment opportunities and industry reports. And also to give you a little bit of background info about EMSI, it started back in 2001 doing research, and then in 2003 it had launched its labor market tool, and then finally in 2012 they were acquired by CareerBuilder. And then just recently this year, they were bought by a nonprofit company called Strata Education Network, which has been really great because they've added more about education-related needs to these occupations and industries. See if I can get in there. There we go. I've already logged into EMSI, and EMSI is always changing and adding more information. So as you can see, I've got different reports here that I can go into. I can also look at a region. I can look at an industry. If I want to go specific about an occupation, I can do that. Education, input, output about a company, and then job postings. I want to go into occupation really quick, and you can see from here there's different things that I can do. I can take a look at a talent supply by how much they're paid. I can also look at the availability that they have. How many workers do we have? And then looking at how diverse this particular occupation is. I usually do occupation snapshot. And so I was actually, and as you can see, it has SOC code listing here. You can take a look at by job title, or you can, and then you list what type of county. So I was looking at some things yesterday for interpreters and translators. And I can run that report since it's already available. And you see how quickly this data has been collected for us. It gives you the different types of job titles that's been reported by employers. And now here you have the pay, the compensation here, and how much demand is available. This particular position for interpreters, the cost for it, the pay, sorry, is higher than national average. And they give you the supply of how many jobs. And it goes even deeper into the types of industries that hire these specific people of interpreters and translators. Where do they work? Where do people who work as translators, where do they live and where do they work? Now we're talking about diversity here, retiring soon, how many of them are, how diverse, and also going into compensation again, it compares also the cost of living. So how much does this position pay versus the cost of living is what they're looking at here, and they're comparing it to the national average. So our county to the national average. Now we're going to go even further into jobs. Here are the names of the companies, top companies that are hiring for this specific position of an interpreter. And then finally, which schools train them. So for the sake of time, I was curious, What do you guys think of this tool so far of EMSI? Oh, thank you. Thank you, Sharon. Yes, Liz. Liz asked a great question. Is the EMSI a paid membership? Yes, you have to pay for it. So either you can check with your local board to see if they have, that you are using this tool or if they're using something similar. If not, if you're thinking about purchasing a membership for yourself, for your consortium, or for yourself as a provider of service, I would recommend it. Yes, it can even it goes into your county, even specific to the job postings of which zip codes those employers are located at. So it gets even deeper. And I'm just giving you a very brief snapshot as to what this product can provide. So there's much more.
We had a question. How does it differ from Tracer 2?
This information comes from the data is being collected from as of last quarter. So instead of waiting for 2 years of data to mature, you're looking at this information being collected and reported as recent as last quarter. And it also collects self-employment information too. Suppressed and unsuppressed wage data, that's also included. So those are the differences between this and Tracer. Thank you. Thank you, Christopher. Seems to have lots of valuable information. Thank you. Definitely, thank you. I think I'm running out of time here. So I'm going to breeze on through these last bits, and if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask them. Now we're getting into the resources and then also the references. So you will be able to look up this information yourself and go back to it. I've already shown you some information about what the documents look like or the website looks like. So if anyone has any questions, please put it into the chat pod, and then we'll be able to wrap it up. And Dr. Olga has stated that the PowerPoint will be available after it's taken through the accessibility process, so you'll be able to go back to it. And all of the resource links will be posted in the Career Pathways Community of Practice. So all of these attachments, the documents, the reports, everything will be posted on the Community of Practice for you to use. And so you'll be able to go more in depth with it.
Thank you so much, Christina. Does anybody have any additional questions? I know it was a lot of information that Christina provided, but she always provides such great information that we can use. And like I said, we were going to be posting the resources, some of these documents in the Community of Practice under this workforce webinar title. So again, thank you so much. Any other questions we will entertain? Well, it's 1:30, or thank y'all so much for attending.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Sharon. Daisy, Charmaine, everyone, thank you so much for attending and taking part in this. And it is a lot of information, so feel free to look back on it. You have plenty to go through. Thank you, Christopher. Thank you, everybody.